That was my first time with a centerfold in a romance novel too, but we can cross that off our bucket list, all right? So that's kind of as sexy as it's gonna get. Well, that's not entirely true. There are sex scenes in the book. But if you're someone who hasn't read this yet and you're just trying to figure out should I or shouldn't I, let me do a quick little 30-second review with no spoilers for you, and then the rest of us can get into all the juicy little tidbits, because this is a treasure. All right, let's go. Okay, so should you get this? Should you spend the time on actually reading this book? 100,000,000%. Yes, please read this. This is a completely different experience from any book I'm sure that you have read. It's, as far as historical romances go, is it great? No, but I'm telling you to read it for other reasons. It's hilarious in my opinion, and it's Fabio. So just go support him. You should read it. You're gonna have an entertaining time with this one, okay? I promise. All right, when you're done, come back here, watch the rest of the video, and we can just laugh together. All right, cool. Okay, so as far as this book goes, look, on Goodreads, it has a 3.4 star rating, which honestly, like, that's not a bad rating. That's not necessarily saying that you shouldn't read this book, but I'm gonna be straight. I do feel like that's a little generous. That's a little high, in my own personal opinion, but I don't know. I'm going to say that it has definitely 2 stars. I'm going to give it a full 2 stars, but I'm going to put a little asterisk there that says definitely read it though. Okay? Because I recognize that this is just a horrible book. It was. I don't know how you guys feel, but that was a horrible book. But simultaneously, I have never been so utterly shocked by how bad a book was, but simultaneously having the time of my life while reading it. You know, like, it was such a contradiction. And look, honestly, like, if you want to call yourself a historical romance reader, if you want to join the club, you have to read Fabio. You gotta support him, man. Like, he is the romance cover model of our time. He is romance, okay? So it is required by law that you read Pirate by Fabio Lanzoni. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, man. You know, like, it's just, you have to cross it off your bucket list. It's enjoyable for all sorts of reasons. But if we really kind of break it down into what's good and what's bad, you may completely differ. Feel free to let me know. But my good is pretty small. It's a pretty small list. So why don't we start there? All right. So where did I put my book? So for me, there's plot. Kind of an overabundance of plot that Fabio provided. That is what he did, because this is in collaboration with Eugenia Riley, who actually wrote the book. But the plot, there's just so much going on. You know, we got fake priests, we got action sequences, we got multiple kidnappings, we have hidden pregnancies, we have pirates fooling the aristocracy. There's just, I'm probably leaving stuff out because there is so much, but there's a lot here. So it's a little too much, but you know what? It kept my attention. So I'm gonna give kudos there, okay? They're due. And then the other thing is that Eugenia Riley did do a good job at putting this all together. She knows how to write. She is like a romance novelist of her own. I'm not gonna say this is particularly well written, I guess. You know, there are errors and stuff, but I think that really has to do with the plot. You know, she made sure that it flowed, that it wasn't necessarily like jumping all over the place. So kudos there too. And then I guess lastly, I will add this in, but this is going to also come up in the con section. But you know, the sex scenes weren't bad. Was it the best that I've ever read? No, but you know, it wasn't the worst. But as far as the bad stuff goes, right? Probably I'm going to start off with the fact that the characters, I have to start off with the characters, mainly being our female lead, our heroine, if you will, if you want to call her that, Christina. She's a total brat, like an absolute brat. I could not stand her, like at all. Every time she was on the page, every time she spoke, or we were like in her mind, it was just like nails on a chalkboard. She's such a naive little brat. It's like she was perpetually a 12-year-old, you know, and just like her logic was so poor, and it was just, it's kind of like honestly how men want, I'm gonna say it this way. It's like the stereotype of what you think men think women think of when they're attracted to a man, right? Hopefully that made sense. But like she's just completely and utterly obsessed with Marco, and she can't think in any sort of logical way. Like it's just, she's terrible. I hate her. She's probably actually the worst heroine I've ever read. I really hated her. On top of that, adding into that, Marco wasn't great either. But at least, I'm going to say this, Marco was entertaining. Christina just annoyed the piss out of me. But Marco was hilarious. Like, I love the fact, like, he's literally the epitome of what men think women want, you know, like he's this super tall, like super tan, super muscular, super strong dude who is dangerous to all of his enemies, but he's still virtuous and soft with the woman that he loves. He wears condoms, which, you know, back then, very rare. And he simultaneously like kept dreaming about wanting to get Christina pregnant, but made an emphasis on that. He wears condoms. He's safe. He's safe. What else about him? Oh, God. Probably the biggest thing was just the constant, like, metaphors, analogies that he was doing with his bits. I'll say it that way. Constantly referring to them like a mast, and he wants her to dance on his mast like the sails of a ship. Why? Why, Fabio? But, it was entertaining. It definitely, you know, is jarring and makes you stop and takes you out of the story, but I got a laugh out of it, so that's good. Yeah, Marco is just an interesting character. He's basically your Rico Suave, but he hasn't really been with too many women, so it doesn't make Christina too upset, but she also just acts like a total, like a child, just like a child, okay? You may beg to differ, I don't know, but she's just, I hated her so much. Did any of you guys have like a moment when they finally come together, they have their intimate scene, I'll call it, and then Pansy, the cheetah, licks his back and starts purring? Like, that was the most random thing I have ever read. Like, why? Why, man? Just why? But it was entertaining, so. Speaking of characters, I guess we could add this in there too. The villains of the book, there's multiple villains, so just, you know, going back to that point about how there's kind of a little too much plot there. There's multiple villains, and they're both so bad. Everything's just so cliche. So cliche. But first, let's talk about Carlos. Let's talk about him as a villain. He's the Spanish pirate that Marco, apparently for like the last 10 years, he just has like a complete vendetta towards. Like they hate each other, they loathe each other. All the stuff that happened with Marco's parents and the Spanish and all that. And somehow, at the end, after which Carlos, remember, kidnapped Christina and basically was threatening to like rape her for like 2 weeks, but never acted on it, even though he's a pirate and she was being annoying as hell. But he never acted on it, and he like kept her tied to a bed. I don't think she ever like bathed or anything, so he treated her super poorly. And Marco and him all of a sudden are friends, you know, just lickety split. That was a moment of, what? That was very poorly done. I definitely feel like that could have been done way better. And like on top of it, the reason all of a sudden he's essentially like they're friends is because of Rosa, because, you know, they boned, and he essentially just had this realization, this epiphany of, I miss her. I like her a lot, you know? I want to be with her, so let's be buddies. I want Rosa. Okay, cool, all right. And Marco's just like, yeah, I'm fine, that's cool. He punches him like once, and then he starts calling him my friend. My friend. What is that? So that, I'm taking points off for that. And then the other villain, Step Uncle George, or whatever his name is, he kidnaps her, of course. So she's like kidnapped like 3 times. Let's just make that clear. But Step Uncle George, you think he's the good guy, and then at the end, you find out he's the bad guy. And the way that you find out is it's very Bond villain-esque, where he just lays out his whole plan and his whole backstory for you in like one giant monologue, you know, like, it was crazy. Getting to probably the most disturbing bit and the craziest bit for me, which I'm leaving this for last, but it was at the very beginning of the book. I'm sure this did the exact same thing to you. I know it was the 90s. I know it was a different time, but I also know back in the 90s that sexualizing a 12-year-old was also bad. So that only goes so far, okay? But right in the beginning, where her island, Christina's on this island, right? And it's basically completely ablaze. The Spanish pirates are literally running around. They're like murdering men. So you hear men screaming because they're dying. You hear women screaming because they're being raped. And you're hearing children crying because they're terrified out of their minds because they're either getting burned alive or their home is burning or their mom or dad is getting murdered or raped. So there's absolute freaking chaos. Okay. And this 12-year-old girl comes out of her house and she's not scared. All of that happening. She's good. She's absolutely good. Because she sees a pirate, which, to be clear, is the Italian pirate Marco, who somehow sees the island burning and is like, I need to save it because I hate the Spanish. So he comes to help and she sees him, and her first thought is that she's not scared. She's enraptured by him and his thighs. What? She's 12, dude. She's 12, and she's thinking about your thighs while all that's going on? Okay. This is like a complete male fantasy. And then it gets kind of worse, because when he sees her, he is, again, enraptured by her beauty. A 12-year-old, a child, which he literally says in the book. He calls her a child. No more than 12. And then he starts to list off all of these qualities, talking about how slender she was, how beautiful she is, her full mouth. Fabio, come on, man. That is so bad. That was an interesting part to read. And then when you move like not even that far along after that, when they're finally actually on the ship and she's not afraid, like I already stated, not afraid at all, completely leaving her home behind. She's cool. Doesn't know any of these men, but she feels safe with pirates. Okay, feels safe with pirates. And then the first mate, Luigi, is that his name? I can't remember at the moment. But the first mate is literally pleading with Marco that he let her marry him. She's 12, and he says something to the effect of, give her 2 years, she's more than enough woman for me. At 14? Like, what? But Marco, of course, says no, because all of a sudden, even though he just talked about her full mouth, remember that, just talked about her full mouth and how beautiful she is, and the moonlight like streaking through her hair, and just, setting up a sexy scene, right? But she's 12. Now all of a sudden, he feels this paternal / brotherly feeling towards her. He just wants to take care of her and spoil her and take her to an island, let her run rampant. Again, he's a pirate. Okay. But now he feels like a father to her. Okay? That's in your mind, right? Then they finish the chapter or 2 chapters. I can't remember what it is. Now she's 18. And suddenly, now that she's the legal age, that's when Marco all of a sudden is like, oh, no. I want to her. It was so weird to read. I don't know, man. At least, like, I know as far as older books go, like, typically the thing that can be a little creepy is a lot of the trope is, like, kind of like a rape fantasy. And this didn't have that. But this has, like, that's a child, dude. Like, It was weird. It was weird. It was weird. All right, so that's it for now. I will go ahead and see you guys next time. If you did like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you know when my next video comes out. I will see you guys next time. Have a good week. Bye.